Hello. Okay, this is just going to be a quick overview as to what is required for the dreams essay. I'll run through most of the content which we've gone through in the lesson, and hopefully this should just serve as a quick little reminder as to what we have covered. Now, the first thing that we're going to be looking at is Freud. Okay, so he is the main person within our psychological theory. Now, within the Freudian theory, he believes that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. So realistically, when we are looking at dreams, we are truly looking at what is going on within our unconscious, what is just creeping below that layer, which is just bubbling to the top. Now, the first bit that we've got going that we can look at here is the primary process thought, which involves repression and is associated with the id. And remember, the id is the instinctual driven part of our personality. Now, through the id expressing itself in the dreams, it allows those wishes and those desires that are sitting in our unconscious to become satisfied. So therefore, they're not just bubbling at the bottom of our unconscious. And if they carry on bubbling in our unconscious, it can jeopardize our sanity. So therefore, the primary process thought allows for the id to express itself in a constructive manner which will not be detrimental to the individual. Now, finally, Freud suggested that the unconscious wishes are expressed symbolically, which just means that we've got these two different types of content, which we should know by now, which is latent content and manifest content. Now, the latent content is the real meaning of the dream, and manifest content is what you can recall. Now, the manifest content is created through the process of dream work, which the main two processes that we focus down on is condensation and symbolism. Now, symbolism is simply where the emotions or the thoughts of a particular event or memory are displaced onto another object. Meanwhile, condensation is the complex imagery or memories that we've got going on through our mind are all compressed right all the way down into brief images, and they can sometimes be creating the symbols as well. Now, for Freudian theory, it is important that we are going to evaluate it all now. By now, we understand that Freud believed that dreams were things that individuals just experience because the id expresses itself. And that is just a way of us protecting ourselves and our sanity. And this is all done by the primary process thought. Now, if this was the case, why would we experience nightmares? Because nightmares surely are not a comfortable thing for us. Therefore, we need to Freud really needs to reconsider his theory or understanding of the meaning of dreams. So he retracts what he initially says and starts to come along the idea that actually maybe nightmares are a sensible warning which are being delivered to us, something which we need to take notice of, because if we don't take notice of them, we may not develop the correct skills to deal with this, in sense of if we experience our fear, we won't know how we can deal with it. Which means he starts to develop his original theory. So he realises it's not completely perfect and it can be developed further. Now, you can use Carl Jung as a point of evaluation here for Freudian theory. Now, the main part of this is obviously him and Freud used to work alongside each other. Now, the main point of this is Freud believed that it's the individual's unconscious that is creating the dream content. Meanwhile, Carl Jung focuses more on the understanding that actually our dream content is created through a collective unconscious. Now, they separated in terms of their research or their cooperation based on the understanding of what dream content was actually for. Obviously, as we know by now, Freud believed dream content was the id expressing itself, or those instinctual pleasure-seeking desires are being expressed from our unconscious so they don't threaten our sanity. Meanwhile, Jung believed that we have these archetypes which are universally experienced. So everyone, no matter what the age, location, culture, will experience these archetypes. Now, when we were in lesson, we looked at several archetypes. So if you look at your lesson notes, there should be a few in there. The most recent one, despite it possibly being a hoax, was this man. Okay, as we spoke about this man, he appears on your lesson notes as well. He is the guy who would appear in your dreams when you're facing emotional hardship. So there has been recent reports all over the world of people seeing this man within their dreams. So therefore, possibly Carl Jung's theory, it has a bit more validity to it. Our second bit of evaluation here would be falsification. As we should know by now, this is the ability to prove the theory right or wrong. This means it is difficult to prove the theories of Freud and Carl Jung wrong because it's our unconscious expressing itself. So therefore, we are unable to measure it accurately. So the further problems also arise because Freud argued the support for the dream interpretation could be given in two ways. So either the dream accepts the interpretation of the dream, the unconscious wishes, or they reject them. However, if they reject them, this is further confirmation, as Freud would argue that the person is repressing their unacceptable conscious desires further. So realistically, the person is not ready to deal with the interpretations that maybe the psychoanalyst is giving already. Therefore, circular argument carries on, which obviously remains that we aren't able to prove either one of those right or wrong because we cannot falsify them accurately. Now, for our main part of this, after falsification, we can link this with Cartwright because Rosalind Cartwright in 2006 starts to really push forward the psychological theory in a sense because she constructs a piece of research which can provide us with empirical evidence as to whether or not or why our dream content is created. So it fits in with psychological theory due to her theories here, and she believes that actually our dreams are a reflection of our thoughts and experiences. That is instead of the id or the collective unconscious creating our dream content. So how did she research this? So she had a divorced woman and she asked them over a 5 month period to recall how many times they thought about their ex-partner. They would then go to a sleep clinic, and then her researchers would awaken them when they are in REM sleep. And when they are in REM sleep, they were asked to then, well, when they're woken from REM sleep, they'll be asked to give an accurate and detailed account of their dreams. What she found was there was a positive correlation between the amount of times the divorced woman thought about their ex and whether or not the partner appeared in the dream as a character. Now, obviously, that is strong evidence for her, and she was able to really provide some good quantitative data for this. This is something which, again, Freud and Carl Jung were unable to do. So, realistically, Cartwright has started to give more credible and credible foundation towards the psychological theory. Now, our next bit of AO2 is dream work. Fortunately, modern methods of brain imaging can now be used to evaluate Freud's ideas. His theories of condensation during dream work can be supported by Hopfield, et al., who used computer simulations which mimicked the brain during dreaming. These simulations showed that neural networks deal with overloaded memory by condensing memories, and this fits with the complex unconscious wishes being reduced into one brief image, which is the main idea of condensation within the dream work process. Possibly this could also explain some of what Cartwright found. So maybe the reason why the partners appeared within those dreams was because of condensation, those memories being compressed down into brief images, and they were expressed as characters within the X's dreams. Now, we are moving on to the second part of the essay, which is the activation synthesis hypothesis. Now, this was theorized by Hobson and Macaulay, who suggested that REM sleep and the characteristics of the neurobiological activity associated with rapid eye movement during REM sleep can explain why we experience dreaming. Now, remember, REM sleep takes up to 20 to 25% of our sleep, so this is a large chunk in which we need to explain what is going on. We are going to look at this brief image here, which should hopefully ring a few bells with us. Now, the main bit here, if we look at the activation section of the activation synthesis hypothesis, is that the motor cortex, which is found approximately there, is active during REM sleep. This means that the muscles within the body are completely paralyzed. Obviously, the only muscles which are in operation during REM sleep are the muscles in the eyes. Now, what happens next is that the brainstem starts to generate electrical signals which then are distributed throughout the brain. Now, these electrical signals are similar to external stimulation, so example, feedback that we get from our senses. Then we move on to the synthesis section. So it is then during the synthesis part of the process where dreams are created. When the activation from the brainstem reaches the areas of brain which normally process internal and external sensations, these areas then try to make sense of the stimuli just as they would when we are awake. Now, this would often happen with the prefrontal cortex. The rational parts of the brain seemingly would then start to process these signals, and then that is what is creating our dream content. Now, dreams then arise and are often bizarre due to the mixing of these electrical signals from the brainstems with the stored images and memories that we've got going on as well. Now, the activation synthesis hypotheses, you just need to state what is happening within both of these sections within terms of activation and synthesis. Now, we have a bit of research support for this, which is primarily conducted by Braun. And I draw your attention to the last point on the slide there. Obviously, as we know, the neurobiological theory, the main point and support for this is that it is scientific data, okay? So, scientific research, sorry. And that means for us that is highly controlled, therefore is highly valid as well, because we can replicate it and we can see that we are actually measuring what we intend to measure. Braun says here, within his bit of research, that the brainstem is indeed active during REM sleep, as predicted by the activation part of the hypothesis. Now, he's providing some good foundational support for Hobson and Macaulay's activation synthesis hypotheses, because he's found something similar as to what they are stating within their original theory. Okay, now we move on to Solms 1999. This is a straight AO2 evaluation piece here. He provides some challenging evidence for the activation synthesis hypotheses, because as we have found with this particular theory, the main emphasis is on REM sleep. He found that patients who suffered from brain damage, who no longer had REM activity, still reported dreaming. Meanwhile, individuals who had damaged forebrain with intact REM sleep were unable to dream. So maybe Freudian theory can go one step further in explaining why those who had a damaged REM area were still able to experience dreaming, whilst those who experienced forebrain were unable to do so. Now, Solms carries on really developing his points here. He starts to really strengthen Freudian theory through the use of PET scans. He found that the irrational part of the brain, which is associated with the limbic system, was extremely active during sleep, whilst the cortical areas, like the prefrontal cortex, which deals with rational conscious thought, were inactive. So therefore, this is providing us with some scientific evidence that possibly Freudian theory isn't as ludicrous as we once thought. Maybe we need to start taking it more into consideration when we are looking at why and how we dream. Now, a direct real opposition to the activation synthesis hypotheses, you can bring Payne and Nadel into this. Now, Payne and Nadel, the examiner loves because it is brand new research and it's outside of all textbooks. Now, he found that we actually dream through both phases of our sleep, so REM and slow wave sleep. However, depending on what areas of the brain are active during that phase of sleep, depends on what content you experience. So, for example, when we are in slow wave sleep, we experience episodic style dreams, which are just episode style dreams of our real life, our real waking life. Meanwhile, when we have REM sleep, we tend to have bizarre dreams, fragmented dreams, which for the activation synthesis hypothesis proves that they have got something right to an extent. However, maybe they need to develop their theory further to really take into account as to what is going on within both phases of sleep. Now, the last and final point in which we will be looking at here is Snyder and Harikawa. Now, Snyder is direct opposition to the activation synthesis hypotheses as well as Freud, and because he found with doing a meta-analysis on 600 young people's dreams, he found that only 5% of these dreams you could categorise as exotic, so for us, bizarre. Meanwhile, 70% were replicas of real life. Now, this is a challenge for both theories because they do attribute and state that dreams tend to be bizarre in nature, whilst we haven't really found this within Snyder's research. So possibly dreaming needs to have a different avenue to look under. So Payne and Nadel's research could help us further develop our understanding as to why maybe young people experience more real life type dreams. As we will learn through the theories of sleep, slow wave sleep is the phase of sleep in which the body repairs itself, and as young people, you will, during this phase of sleep, be having your muscles repaired, your tissue repaired, and as well as that, growth hormone will be released as well. So this would be the phase in which you are growing. So possibly, as in relation to Payne and Nadel's research, this is why you are experiencing replicas of real life type dreams, because you have more slow wave sleep. Whilst when you reach adulthood, the REM sleep may be the main function that takes over the large chunk of slow wave sleep you currently experience. And that's why your dreams may gradually get more and more exotic, seemingly, as you get older. Now, as a final point here, because this is additional research that we've also conducted in lesson, Harikawa et al., which is 2013, so very, very modern research here, found using new techniques with the fMRI that we were able to recognise images that individuals experience when dreaming. Maybe this new type of scientific research will help us propel both theories forward, because we'll be able to start to categorize the different types of images individuals experience and possibly during the different phases of sleep. So furthering our understanding of Freudian theory, Carl Jung's theory, and Rosalind Cartwright's theory, as well as realistically allowing us to monitor what is going on in terms of the brain activity. So hopefully helping the activation synthesis hypotheses develop its understanding further. Now, throughout this essay, obviously you just need to pick and choose what you are going to write about. I have really emphasised in lesson, and I will do so now, that you have to ensure that you are extending your essay beyond the textbook. And you can do so by using the OpenStax College textbook, which is available in the pupil area, or you can conduct your own research using Google Scholar or just simply looking on Google. Now, if you have got any questions, let me know and I'll be happy to help.